First of all, let us know if the audio is good. I believe it's just on point as I'm checking. The dog is also. I hear Dougie very clear. So if you guys don't know who is Dougie, he works for Figment, right? Specifically for Figment Ventures. Is it that's how it's called?
Figment Capital, Figment Ventures, all the same thing,
Sorry,
but yeah,
Figment Capital. Yeah, sorry.
all
I
good.
mean like Figment Capital. That's
It's
the correct
confusing,
name.
no
I
problem.
I mixed up. So his profession is not necessarily devin, but Doggy profession is finding the next big thing in crypto. And I think there is a lot of focus in Cosmos. What will work in few days, a few years? Where is the opportunity where he can multiply his money? And I was thinking that's something that retail can more relate to Doggy, because Doggy financial status depends on the price performance of those chains, um, which I think a lot of us want. But first of all, you look very young, Doggy.
Really, I just shaved, so that might be why I look younger than I did like an hour ago. But I'm 25, so I'm not too young. Like for crypto, I feel kind of old sometimes, but I feel like 25 is like right in the middle of like where a lot of people are in crypto.
You are extremely young. I'm 33. I will be 33 this year.
Wow.
I'm late bloomer.
Oh, okay.
So it's mind blowing for someone, because you are 25. At 25, I was really, well, my situation was not really great, and you are there already being investor at the 25. And yeah, like you said, for crypto there is a lot of young developers. I actually think
Yeah.
Cosmos has very old community compared
Yeah.
to, even compared to Ethereum. I feel Cosmos is one of the oldest. I feel the average is well over 30. Ethereum, like, which was very weird, because I went to some other communities and I chat to people and I say something and they're like, "Dude, I'm teenager."
Yeah.
And I never had it in Cosmos. I don't think I ever spoke with teenager in Cosmos. And I heard Solana is even more like this. Solana is so many teenagers. Like they told me Solana is like 16 to 40, so you can like get. But
Yeah.
which I
Cosmos
think
definitely
is
seems,
this. Yeah.
I say Cosmos definitely seems to be older. I don't know why. It's one of the few communities where I feel properly my age. Like in Ethereum or other places, I feel old a lot. Like I talked to developers who are like 18, 19, and it's just unbelievable. Like they're way smarter than I am, and I'm like, what did I do wrong in my life to where 18-year-olds are walking laps around me?
Yeah, and in Cosmos, like, oh, you 40, that's okay.
Yeah.
There is a lot,
Yeah.
like, a lot of founders. When you think Zach is probably around 40, Jack Zampolin is over 30, Jake Wan is well, like, yeah, he's founder. So founders are like Jake Wan is around 40, I think, but
Yeah, I think so.
um Cosmos founder, like, around 40, I would say, or 30 something. Shane from Stargaze around 40, right? Like, so it's like, hey, what's
Good point.
going. Yeah.
Hmm.
um so I wonder, like, to me, you are very young. How come such young person like you gets involved in the venture capital like Figment Capital? How did it look, if you can break it down for me?
Yeah. So kind of the way I got involved was I actually got involved in Cosmos pretty early, like 2020, I think was when I first bought Atom and then kind of like started integrating myself into the community. And then in 2021, I started to get active on Twitter because I kind of realized that like crypto lives on Twitter, especially Cosmos. Like everything that happens is pretty much on Twitter. So I started writing threads, started meeting certain people, interacting with people, and then like, Figment Capital, Figment, the staking provider, both have been very active in Cosmos for a long time. And so as I started to meet more people, kind of like build up a brand for myself, I met like the managing partner at Figment Capital, and then I was working outside of crypto at the time, and I didn't love what I was doing. I was spending basically every second of my day doing crypto stuff, but I wasn't being paid to do crypto stuff besides like my personal investments. So yeah, when the opportunity arose and they were like, "Hey, we'd love to work with you," I immediately jumped on it. So honestly, it was like somewhat like strategic, but honestly kind of lucky. Like I, was discovered by the right person at the right time, and it kind of just worked out. So it's been about, I don't know, 16, 17 months now, something like that. So yeah, I started when I was 24, and I'm going to be 26 in a few months, which makes me feel old, but yeah, can't stop aging.
And what were you doing at this time when they found when you said 2020 discovered Cosmos? It
Yep.
seems like our story is very much the same, although
Oh, nice.
you've been a little bit more successful.
I
Uh,
wouldn't say that.
when
It's
it
all
comes
different.
to the Cosmos, so what were you doing 2020? You were having other job or?
Yeah, so I graduated college in 2020 actually.
Mhm.
And then yeah, I was working in like the e-commerce M&A space, which is like basically acquiring these like super undervalued young businesses in the e-commerce space, and then like adding them to like a holding company and then helping them grow.
Mhm.
And so it's kind of similar in a way to venture capital. It's a bit earlier stage as an acquisition model, but it kind of like gave me the skills to like understand, I think, how to do venture capital. And then like for college, I studied finance and economics, and so like then I was a personal investor, spending a lot of my time trading and doing random stuff on chain. And so like I think just like through those 2 years of like learning everything I could about crypto, and then like getting those basic investment and like business building skills from my other job, that was like they laid down the
Mhm.
framework to actually be quite effective on the investment side of crypto. So but yeah, I love being an investor in crypto way, way more than my last job. My last job was like I couldn't wait for it to be over. And honestly, I always had like two monitors, one with like crypto and the other one with my job. And I was like, I'd be trading like on calls, just doing all sorts of DGen stuff. So it was a good time.
I started the same. So I joined Cosmos, but I wasn't active on Twitter. Like I'm very new to Twitter. I discovered, like not discovered. I started using Twitter 2 years
Yeah.
ago, but I
Okay.
feel I got good at Twitter maybe a year ago. Like you join
Yeah.
Twitter, you have no followers. It's very
Yeah.
weird. But once it
Hard.
start rolling, it's like a snowball, and then you start having fun. Um,
Yeah.
so and now I think Twitter is the greatest. Like it's actually the funnest social media platform that I have. I use it all the time. But like so yeah, I joined 2020 around like February. I started buying crypto, and
Okay.
I will repeat myself, but I saw the name Cosmos and I like the logo, and I start buying this on Coinbase every day. And I
No
went
way.
like with all of the dumped the March dump. So the lowest was like $1.10 or something like that, like 130, I think. But like it averaged down. I was buying like small amount of money from
Yeah. If you
February
kept
to
buying, then you nailed the timing. That's like the perfect time to buy, actually.
so yeah, like so I was
Huh.
very lucky, but considering how good timing I had, I did pretty badly because I wouldn't cash out then in 2021 and then again in 2022. And but with that, I now last year, ironically, is my best investment year in crypto I've done
Wow.
last 8 months. Yeah.
How did you do that?
So um yeah, okay. Like so I did pretty well. I did like over 1,000% first year, didn't cash out, right? When
Yeah.
went all down. Then with like Cosmos bull market also, and around 8 months ago, I was for quite a while looking at the Milady Maker NFT,
Right.
and I pretty much 8 months ago start cashing out everything, and with my leftover bags that were nearly close to break even, I would like start selling everything and buying Milady and another project of them.
Yep.
So here we are. I'm actually at like you know um, I outperformed the markets, but
Well, yeah.
and and I
That's
was at
incredible.
yeah, and I was at all time high actually. So I think the bear markets have like quite a lot of opportunities if you stay around. Sometimes it's easier. Of course, it's just the NFT. There is a lot of sheer lag. Also bad kits, the bad kits was my big exposure. So the bad kits saved me because the bad kits is like when it comes to Cosmos the best performing asset in
Yep.
Cosmos. So yeah, like the last year is by far the best I have. And you know I sound a little bit angry on Twitter, and people would assume like it's bear market, that's why I'm angry. And I'm trying, like, I'm really not angry. I'm not angry here. It's actually quite opposite, right?
Yeah. I
So
mean, you're a
20,
millennial male. How could you be angry?
yeah. Well, now a little bit because I didn't sell when Elon Musk tweeted me, lady.
Okay.
So yeah, I still didn't figure out very well the selling game.
Yeah,
So
it's hard. It's psychologically difficult to sell because it's the FOMO aspect. You feel like the second you sell, price is going to go up and you're going to hate yourself for it. So it's like super hard to actually hold yourself to sell and move on from an investment.
and I want to know for capital like yours, because what I learned in crypto, especially in the last two years, right, which gave me the confidence that venture capital does essentially the same mistakes what everyone else does. Um, I They have a little bit advantage because they might have access, right? But there is a lot of other mistakes they do that are the same as venture capital. That was the lesson. Even like, when I would look at Figment capital portfolio, see investments that, well, you probably did okay because of the vesting schedules, right? But yeah, like, does you at Figment and your team had the FOMO moments?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely try to invest less emotionally than I would say like I sometimes do personally, like with my own money. We try to have more like structured processes, but venture, so crypto as a whole, obviously, extremely high risk asset class. Like no matter what, if you're not going to only pick winners, there are going to be some losers, probably things that go to zero. And venture is like, we do early stage investing, and so it's like even before TGE, like when the token is actually like liquid and available, like we're investing in these projects, and like sometimes it's like a couple people with an idea, and like we like the people and we help them basically realize this idea, and like naturally things can go wrong during that time, and like there are projects that sometimes you never make it to like token launch, and then ones that do and just go down only. Like we try to not invest emotionally, but like despite our processes, our research, like mistakes are going to happen. Like even like outside of crypto, the best venture funds, if you hit like if 30% of your investments like work out, you're all-time great venture investor. So like you're not going to hit every one, but I think you try to hit obviously as many as you can. And yeah, I feel like we do a pretty good job, honestly. And like I feel like we support projects that make a big difference in the space too, which like also I think is important because like we're all in this for the space to do amazing things. And so like I think our way to do that is through supporting these early stage founders.
Yeah, I must say, maybe I noticed wrong, that Figment is not the great seller. What I mean by that, I and sorry for a little bit of stalking,
That's okay.
not that much, but similarly to you, I actually got the job via Twitter, for Stargaze, and I
Awesome.
know Figment was investor on Stargaze, so there was a lot of voices. People would tell me, hey, it's investors selling, like, and yeah, maybe there was actually like long list investors, and I know the Figment was one of the largest.
Yeah.
And uh, I realize that you don't even regularly claim your rewards. I don't know if you even claim them. Like, there was a lot like that are due to claim, and someone told me that Figment manages that via multi-sig. And is it true? Like, because it doesn't seem you squeeze that value, like, if you would be continuously selling your rewards early on, that would be more beneficial, and you still have like a lot of these unclaimed rewards. So what causes that inefficiencies, which is great because you show the long-term support to the project, right? Which build the trust, which is very important, right? But so is it purpose? Is it in purpose? That's what you do, or you're just not great at selling?
I mean, first, I just want to make sure. So like, there's Figment, like the validator, and like we are like Figment Capital. We have our own separate like portfolio investments. So like,
Mhm.
I just want want to make sure, like, are you referring to Figment Capital's like holdings or Figment the validators holdings? Because like,
So
just
that
one.
was the large wallets. I would assume the Figment Capital actually
Okay.
stake with the Figment. So
Yes.
that's how I figure out on the
Okay.
list of investors, there was two large wallets, and both of these wallets were staking with the Figment Capital. And I think both of them had like large amount. I know I'm doxing the information. Maybe that's
No,
not.
no, all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's like certain specifics I can't speak to, but like definitely like the high level thought is like, so one, there's like tax implications. So like when you claim staking rewards,
Right.
restake them, and like that process. So like we try to be more like conservative with how we do that, because even though like from a purely financial perspective, like compounding does yield greater rewards, there actually are tax implications for like
Right.
claiming and restaking frequently. So like, I'm not a tax guy, but like the other guys in my team know more. So like they have a clearly defined process for like how we stake, restake, sell, whatever it might be. But yeah, I mean, in general, like I definitely would agree that we're not a great, we don't sell a ton, to be
Mhm.
honest. Like, we're early stage investors. We are in this for ideally 100x plus returns. And, like we support founders and teams that like we deeply believe in and
Mhm.
want to like be there for the long term to like see them do great things. And so like, I mean, with Stargaze specifically, like, we love Shane. We work closely with Shane. I think we're all bad kids owners on the team. Like we're in this for the long run. I think like when you look at Stargaze, like obviously token performance has been not the best, but that's the same
Mhm.
across all of Cosmos. And like, there's so many amazing things going on Stargaze, like between like bad kids, big kids, all different these NFTs. Like I don't have to tell you, like better than I do. But like, I think like out of all the Cosmos chains, like there's a lot to be excited about in Stargaze. And I think
Mhm.
like when the macro gets better, when hopefully the space sees more adoption, like Stargaze could be a really big winner in my opinion. So I don't know, like I'm personally very excited about the project. I love working with that team. And yeah, like we just believe long term in like what we support. So
Yeah,
that's why
I'm
I'm
not
really
trying
good.
to force you to say nice thing about Stargaze. I just was
No.
speaking about Stargaze because I could say the same about Osmosis. I didn't see your stakes on Osmosis. It's probably the same case, right? But this one
Yeah.
I viewed. That's why I used this one. Um, but
Good.
yeah, like the price performance wasn't great, but I noticed one thing in Cosmos. And I wonder if Figment ever showed, or you personally, if you ever showed those concerns that the tokenomics of Cosmos, I think in comparison to every other chain, were insanely exponential. Like I don't think I've seen any other ecosystem which had tens of the projects start with APRs of few hundreds for the
Yeah.
first few months. And I wonder if you guys, as the investors, looked at that and thought it's not gonna end well. Because I understand one thing is the bear market, but it's also difference between being down 80% and being down 99%, right? Which is the case in Cosmos. So did you look at this and were you a little concerned, or you actually were like, no, it's gonna work out?
I definitely was concerned. I mean, there's reasons why like the high inflation model exists. It's like to encourage and incentivize validators to participate, which like in an environment like 2021 when prices are going up ends up like because there's so much buy pressure, it ends up kind of working. And I think that was like the situation where this tokenomics model, like the third inning model, was birthed from. But I've always been pretty skeptical, to be honest. Like when I was interviewing with Figment Capital, actually, I was like they asked me like, what's one thing you think is not recognized as being very bad that you believe is very bad? And like I was like, I think the third inning model is a very poor token model because I think it incentivizes adoption for about a year and then like it just incentivizes people to like go hop from chain to chain and just chase yield basically. Like if you're solely trying to make money, which most people in the space are, like you're going to stake with Osmosis in year one, and then you're going to go to the next chain that has 100 plus inflation for the next year, and just keep it. Like it doesn't actually incentivize like long term holders and supporters. So yeah, I think like we're seeing now these teams like reevaluating their tokenomics. Osmosis obviously has made some changes, which I think are great. And yeah, like I've never been a big supporter of like the high inflation third inning model type approach. I think there's a balance. Like I'm not sure if I fully agree with like no inflation. I still need to like more deeply think about that. But I do think there's a middle ground. Like 100+ inflation for a year is just not sustainable.
Yeah.
And we've seen that play out.
Yeah, like I think I was a little blind at the start. I'm also not really against inflation. Like even Ethereum, I'm not sure if it's great tokenomics that they have right now.
Yeah.
Um, because I think like expanding tokenomics is fine as adoption happens. Maybe I'm wrong here, it's similar, and once the like adoption is high, I think even similar with the with securities, they are usually issued heavily as the adoption happens, and then like as you make money, you take them off the market, or well, I'm surely not expert on the, but like, so example of the osmosis, you said tokenomics was the concern. They actually changed it yesterday, I think,
Yep.
and you
Yep.
invested in osmosis. And I wonder, is there any concern about osmosis? You look at osmosis and think they did it wrong, and you didn't see that before, or you did see that before?
Honestly, I think like osmosis has done a lot more right than it's done wrong. Like if you look at their positioning within Cosmos, like they're the liquidity hub for the whole ecosystem. I think they have by far the most like on-chain volume out of any Cosmos chain. And so like within like the actual context of like strategically positioning themselves within the ecosystem, there's not much to like criticize. I think the tokenomics could have been done better, but I think Sunny and everyone recognizes that, which is why these changes have been made. And so I think there's still a lot of opportunity with Osmosis. I think like,
Mhm.
it's going to grow probably similarly to Cosmos. Like as Cosmos grows, so does Osmosis because liquidity flows through it. And I think Celestia could be another interesting opportunity for Osmosis. I think if Osmosis can become the liquidity hub for Celestia as well, then that's a whole new piece, like a whole new pie that can grow essentially. So I don't know. I'm personally like I think their team's doing really well. I think they're shipping a lot of really great things. Like concentrated liquidity's on the way, a number of other things. Like I think, yeah. I mean, I don't have a lot of bad things to say. I think the tokenomics model was really my main criticism for the last few
Mhm.
years.
Yeah, I'm asking because I had some concerns. I love osmosis. Like this is the main dex I'm using. Like anyone in Cosmos, this is the main
Yeah, you have
dex
to. There's
I'm
really no other
using.
choice.
My concern was that something that seemed great, bonding all the ecosystem to Osmo token, seemed absolutely fine, and now I think it was actually tragic because,
Yeah,
well, Osmosis mainly was on chain, and I made the video lately because I know Sunny said that he wants most of the liquidity not be on centralized exchanges. What centralized exchanges provide to you is market makers that ensure stability of the price more.
yeah,
If you don't have market makers, it's very dangerous. Cosmos is very stable. I believe it's because it has such a deep liquidity on the, Coinbase, Kraken, Binance, everywhere. So the price is stable. Osmosis didn't have it, so it caused this kind of price crash.
yeah,
As it happens, because the liquidity is bonded to Osmosis, it's ragging every other ecosystem. If your coin, like, to give you example, like what the dangers, but so Stargaze is bonded with two tokens, Osmosis and Atom. Despite the heavy hype on the bad kits and other collections in the past month, as the Osmosis and Cosmos dropped 30%, Stargaze was essentially break even despite the high buying pressure because
yeah.
of. So I wasn't sure if the bonding the liquidity with Osmo, which has benefits for the price, I believe, on utility for Osmo tokens, but it's also dangerous, right? Maybe I see something wrong here.
No, I mean, I don't have much to comment on honestly
Yeah.
with that, but it's a good point. I mean, definitely like the sell pressure that it can create is not ideal. I mean, I guess a question I have is like, would it be better to instead pair it with like a stable coin? Like, obviously, I know from like a LP perspective, not the
Yeah,
best, but like,
this is
yeah,
this is my belief that actually there is, I think, still only like one, like few pairs. The honest pair like for with stablecoin was built for Osmo and USDC, right? Nothing,
Yeah.
which was weird, because you should have actually probably stablecoin liquidity, because if your token go 90% down, it will drag down another token together with this. But if this
Yep.
another token is bonded to USDC, it will not happen. And opposite, this is also dangerous for osmosis. Like stablecoin can also crash. There was UST. It was choice of the team, I believe, Luna. So if
Yes.
you bond the Osmo token to the token that drags, it also affects it all. So it works actually both way. So that's why I was asking.
Yeah.
I love osmosis, but there's the
Yeah. I mean, definitely the UST incident was a tough one. Like I think that was like the stablecoin dependency, and unfortunately, it was just the wrong stablecoin to choose. By the time, it was the only stablecoin in Cosmos, so I think we all were forced to, use it. But yeah, I think, I mean, definitely a healthy mix of like stablecoin pairs with like token pairs or non-stable token pairs. Like it's probably an optimal way to go. I think like having each match to like volatile tokens definitely leaves much to be desired in terms of like the Stargaze example is a good one. But I do think for the most part, like the reason why to some degree it has like been fine so far is because like Cosmos assets in general, and maybe maybe this is the cause, but they move pretty symmetrically. When Atom goes down, all the other Cosmos tokens go down by usually about the same amount. And so I think like Stargaze is a unique example because there's so much buy pressure from bad kids and other NFT collections, but everything else was suffering because like there was nothing else really good happening in Cosmos. And so I think like in most cases, like the correlation makes like the token pairs not problematic, but definitely like you see these exceptions where it's like something great happens in one chain, everything else is held neutral, and like it's not optimal. So I don't know, you raise a good point. Like I didn't really think about it that much honestly until this, but you raise a very good point.
And on top of that, obviously, like most of the all crypto is bonded with also Bitcoin and Ethereum. So it's like I think some people were wondering why prices move together. That's actually the reason, right?
They
Because of
all move together, and like Bitcoin and Ethereum are largely tied to the Nasdaq as well. So like if you check the Nasdaq and it's going down, you can pretty safely assume crypto is probably going down too, and vice versa. I mean, that's just a result of like amateur market. Like hopefully when the market matures, you'll see not just a complete equal movement, but honestly, the stock market's been moving in a pretty one directional way. So I don't know. It's hard to read.
But I do feel like also Ethereum liquidity and Bitcoin would be like, so stable coins, Ethereum, those large assets. But by the way, we had actually before Luna crashed 3 months before, 4 months ago, we had already the bridge, so we could actually bridge USDC and USDT as well. But like that's who could have known about stable coins? I want to ask you, because surely you follow the markets.
Yes.
And I feel the stable coins is one of the greatest opportunities ever. Let's make a guess. If there would be a lot of redeems on Tether, do you think it would finally not, or they can fully cover? What, like, personal thoughts on Tether?
It's definitely a black box that few people want to think about what's inside that black box. I mean, I hope that it would remain stable, and I hope that it's backed with like liquid assets that can be redeemed at 1-to-1 value. But if I was a betting man, I would assume there'd be at least some degree of problems, because I don't think anyone can say with 100% confidence that they are fully 1-to-1 backed. There needs to be some like definitely regulation, auditing, and etc. of that to prove that. Yeah, I think my entire life in this space, and I think a lot of people feel the same way, Tether has always been one of those things where it's like, yeah, we have Tether. It's probably not great, but let's just ignore it. And if it happens, it happens. And if not, perfect. Let's just like not even think about that. So yeah, I personally don't use Tether a lot, to be honest. Like I just never really trusted it. And even though USDC, I think, has some like not great qualities about it, I think it's more stable and like I can trust it more than I can trust Tether. And so I've always opted for USDC. But like, for a while, I was a big decentralized stablecoin guy. Like I was a huge UST supporter for a long time. You can go through my Twitter way back in the day, and I was just tooting that horn. Unfortunately, it didn't have a great ending, but I still do believe like there could be some mechanism, and if it's done right, it could be a huge innovation. Obviously, the rebuilding of trust is going to be extremely challenging. Like, I don't know if I'd put my money in a algo stable again, but like, I definitely support teams that want to innovate towards that direction.
Mhm. You said that USDC doesn't have perfect qualities to it. Can you tell me about them?
Yeah, I think like my biggest criticism of USDC, and which is why I thought like UST was so compelling, is like it's the United States. Like we're in a global industry, and the biggest I think strength of crypto is the fact that like I can send money to someone, to you, like you're as far from me as possible, basically in the world, and I can send you a message, a transaction, whatever, and like it instantly. And like that's a humongous asset. If like a global world, it's what makes crypto so compelling. But with USDC, it's completely like US controlled pretty much. Like, and I think having a stable asset that's completely controlled by a single jurisdiction, it's not just the US, like if it was any jurisdiction that had the same problem with it. But I think, we should have a global currency that's like backed with a multitude of assets, not just the dollar. And it represents like the whole world, because that's what we're dealing with here. It's not just like the US stock market. And so that's like my concern. I think like when you deal with like just you're seeing it right now, like there's a lot of regulation stuff happening in the US, and like that has implications for USDC that's going to have to follow if it wants to exist in the US. So I think like when you have a globalized asset, it's less prone to like the decisions of a single jurisdiction, which can have, I think, better effects for users and like the state of crypto as a whole.
Yeah, like stable coins is like one of the most exciting things for me now, because Tether left USDC now. Like USDC shrinked 50% in the market cap.
Yeah.
While Tether, if they are fully covered, the yield could be so like they could be making $3-4 billion in 2023 on the treasuries, which is a lot of money. So if they were not covered fully, they might be in few years just because
Yeah.
of that. And Tether, because of like actually these qualities, because of not being so dependent on US, it's like actually like the companies incorporated in Hong Kong, the offices are mainly I think in Switzerland. You don't really know what's going on there.
Yeah.
But did you see this new stable coin, True USD?
Yeah. TrueUSD's been around for, I think I used it on Phantom way back in the day, if it's the same one.
And
I don't know
yeah,
a ton about it though, in terms of like its backing, who is actually supporting it. Like I used to use it though because the yield opportunities were really nice back in the day.
so True USD was like I'm reading today because it's like another fascinating story. So True USD, American company, there was American company, I think 2 years ago, was purchased by the Singaporean company.
Huh.
And no one knows much about this company. There is a lot of gossips and claims it's related to Justin Sun, and Justin Sun now changing BUSD to True USD somehow. But this company using apparent banking in like Hong Kong, Bahamas, and US. And they offer products, and I also checked, they offer Australian dollars, also HKD, which is pegged to US dollar. And in last 180 days, the True USD grew from 700 million to 3 billion. And now with
Oh,
BUSD, it seems they change it. So I think USDC should start worrying about True USD because something is happening there. And I think
hmm.
they kind of found, because US is so controlled, like not controlled. USDC needs to obey a lot of laws. They probably
Yeah.
have tons of lawyers. They waste money. Example of Hong Kong, the financial system is pegged to the US system, right?
Yep.
You
Yep.
could you could start the stablecoin here, and you don't have to obey US because you can purchase US dollars, US treasuries here, whatever, and
Yep.
you will have more freedom. Essentially, outgrow you have this like I don't know if I'm thinking right, but that's my thinking, and I think this how like this these places like Singapore, Hong Kong, Bahamas, and
Yeah,
others are at advantage here. But also at the same time, they actually make the dollarization of the world, because I think stable coins actually,
they do. Yeah,
I think it's very bullish for dollar, because no
it
one wants
is.
to use, and I don't want to use euro, any other currency than US dollar stable coins.
It's
So
yeah. I mean, you're thinking about the right way. I think the only counter is like, even though USDC is so heavily regulated, is part of what makes it so like
mhm,
trustworthy, because like they are being watched closer than any other stablecoin in the market, and so you can be most confident that USDC is
mhm,
gonna like stay true to its peg. But obviously, there are downsides to that as well. So like, there's some middle
mhm,
ground that I think like we need to find. But yeah, I mean, that's been like my issue with like US regulation of crypto and stablecoins for so long, is like de-dollarization is happening, and your opportunity to kind of like counterbalance that is on chain with crypto. Like, everything is dollar denominated, the most liquidities for dollar derived stable coins, and yet they want to like take action against it. And like, I don't know, I just don't get it. Like, I'm not a big like pro us rule the world guy, but like, if I was sitting in the US government and I was thinking about how to protect the dollar, I look at crypto and be like, this is like the exact way to do it. Let's support this economy. Let's support all of these innovations, because it's all based on the dollar, and like, we're losing it elsewhere, so we might as well support this. Like, I don't know where the miscommunication is, but for some reason no one's wrapped their head around that in like the decision
yeah,
making bodies in this country.
that's exactly my thinking, because I like, a lot of other countries around the world, I know there is this talks about trying to leave the dollar. All of these currencies collapse against dollar, and the
Yep.
citizens of these countries often switch to dollar. And with the blockchain, they have actually very easy access to the dollar, right? So I would imagine, like, my take would be, if Chinese people one day would get access to the blockchain, there would be massive capital outflow to USD.
Yeah.
Just
Hmm.
like many people think the yuan may be very strong, powerful currency. I don't have the same feeling. So I think all that happens, it helps US dollar a lot, right?
You're 100% right. It's like, this is literally what got me into the space like years ago, was like the opportunity for people in countries with, unstable currencies, like Venezuela,
Hmm.
for example, is a prime example. Like, people basically lost their entire life savings out of decisions that they had no control over. Like, their currency was inflated thousands of percent, and all of a sudden their life savings were worth nothing. And so like, through crypto, you can access more stable currencies. You can financialize your assets in places where you otherwise lack access to banking and stuff like that.
Hmm.
I still think that remains like the true use case for crypto. Unfortunately, you haven't like seemed to make a lot of progress there.
Hmm.
But like, I do think like crypto is going to be a developing country like force, and I think like, or like places where there's a lot of like oppression. Like, I think like parts of Asia could definitely qualify under that. But like, I don't think it's going to be U.S. driven movement. I do think the U.S. should support it, but like, the opportunity and why crypto can be so world changing is in places with like less matured economic systems, or more like, or there's more free
Hmm.
governments.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I want to know. Let's switch. What's your favorite personal investment you did in crypto?
Hmm. It's a very good question. Actually, I've never been asked that. It's a tough one to answer, because they've all gone poorly over time, basically, because like the whole market. I mean, I think, okay, this is gonna sound crazy. For a while, it was Terra, because I was very early in Terra. I like really supported it. I loved UST. I loved the design. I still think there's great parts of that design. I think the way it was managed was obviously terrible, and the ending was catastrophic. But like, I was a big time believer in Terra. I still am a believer in decentralized stablecoins. I don't think maybe tying it directly to another volatile asset's the right model, but I'm going to stick with that answer because I think it stands for something that's so important. I think when I look at like which of my investments have like stood for the most important change in the world, like Terra, despite everything, probably like was the most courageous project I've seen in this space. It was mismanaged. There was definitely some problems there, but like, if we can find a decentralized currency like that and make that like, prominent in the world and in crypto, I think that's a huge economic innovation that can change the world. Like truly believe that, because like what I was saying earlier, like about USDC being US Thai, like this essentially solves in every way.
So I never bought Terra, but I like this answer because I wasn't into Terra.
Okay.
I couldn't like be too much into this. When it collapsed, I was like, haha, right? And now I'm like, I think it was the greatest thing that like it was so amazing, but in terms of community, like it onboarded so many users. And now when I look at Cosmos especially, and I see a lot of Cosmos essentially push away those, like they don't seem they like Terra community, but they were such a let's say passionate people who could take a joke, people who like lost everything, they would be like, yeah, okay, you know. Well, maybe not everyone reacted like this, because I do believe there were some probably tragic events.
There were definitely some people who didn't react that way, but yeah, for the most part, I think most of us did.
But it was, I think the Terra example should be used by the Cosmos chains and be like, that's how you onboard people.
Yep.
Because
absolutely.
And Dougie did amazing marketing. Like Dougie being like was such a great marketing venture. And this is what I have a little bit of problem. Like, hey, stop this old people think how you onboard degenerates and people who want to have fun, like what products you're trying to deliver. So I don't really want to overly chill, but like I discovered the chain Kujira lately, which acquired big number of those Luna users, and they seem to be a little outside of Cosmos. And I think a lot of Cosmos chains push them again away, like they don't want them to be part of Cosmos, which is pretty bad to see, to be honest, because I actually think they deliver quite interesting products. I'm not sure if you're aware of because for me, what the users want, they want to make money and they want to have fun. Making money is fun for them, right? You feel great when you make 10x. That's great.
Sure do.
And they have this product, for example, that you can beat on the liquidations, and when the liquidations happen, you get cheaper atom, you can instantly sell for higher. Like, you made money, you won, that's the game, right? There is this other project that deployed there, which allows you to dollar cost average. So you buy when it's like at the lower price you set, and so those products, like, I think they let people win, and I think many protocols don't have this fun factor in Cosmos. That's the main. If you would say, like, because I do think a little about the Ethereum, right? Is there something
about
that you is I want to ask if there is something about Ethereum, if you involve in Ethereum in any way.
Yep.
That you like more, like this Ethereum community that you like more than Cosmos community.
It's a good question. I mean, yeah, definitely. I spend like so I split my time basically between like Cosmos, Celestia, and Ethereum. There's a lot of similarities, actually. I think Cosmos and Ethereum are the most similar ecosystems in the space, because like they're very technically driven, both of them. And I think that's like what makes Cosmos so compelling, is like really strong research is being done. I think the way that like both sides look at the space is very good. Like, it's an innovation first mentality. They look for ways to build great technology, and that does come sometimes, like, I think the fun aspect you're talking about, like the purely financially driven ecosystems have different qualities. Like, there's Phantom out there, which like is like the degen chain. It always kind of been like that. Solana definitely used to have those qualities as well. Terra for sure had that. I think Cosmos and Ethereum are more like technologically driven. And so in terms of like maybe user experience, sometimes it's not as great, because like users today are largely looking for just like financial gains on chain. Hopefully that changes. I believe that will change eventually. And I think that's the future that Cosmos and Ethereum are building for, where it's like, sure, like right now it's an on-chain casino. Eventually it's going to actually onboard like real financial activity, real financial institutions. social things, like all these different use cases. And I think like Cosmos chains, Ethereum as a whole are building for a future to facilitate that adoption. And like that's what I'm in the space for, to be honest. Like definitely the money making was great for a while, and I hope it happens again. But I do think like I align more with people who are like, let's build for a future where we're having actually healthy adoption, not just like speculation. And the way to do that is through building great tech with like interoperable chains, scalability, whether it's like rollups or app chains, however you want to describe them. And like I do think the resemblance between Cosmos and Ethereum at this point is like they're very similar. For a while they were different, but like they started here and now they just converged. Like they're what Cosmos is building and Ethereum is building is basically the same thing. It just like looks a bit different.
So you said that speculation is like fun, right? This
Yeah.
But we need the real adoption, which and scalability. But
Yeah.
my question is, for what? Is it for buying NFTs, for actually transacting stable coins, or is there like some applications that can actually be more efficient than those in the web 2 world? Like obviously like scalability of Ethereum is problem, but like Cosmos is very scalable, but there is very little transactions in Cosmos. Like this whole space is unused. So I wonder what could fill that space of transactions, if you have any thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna be a spectrum of things. Like, there's gonna remain like the speculation focused applications that should remain. I mean, casinos exist. Like, people naturally love to do that. I love to gamble, so like that'll always exist. I think there's gonna be like different social applications. Like you see Lens on Ethereum, like it's gained some traction, like not a ton, but like I think it's a sign of like what's to come in that regard. Gaming, obviously, I think there's a lot of interesting ways that gaming can be incorporated on chain, and so like that's where the scalability is like especially important. But that will probably come at least some sacrifice to decentralization because like it's hard to be maximally decentralized and maximally scalable, and gaming needs high scalability and throughput. So I do think like maybe that won't be as decentralized, and also like people who are playing games don't really care as much about like censorship resistance and these things. But I think like the base case, the most powerful case for crypto is like having a global decentralized settlement layer for financial transactions where no single country, no single person, whoever has the ability to censor you and stop you from transacting with whoever and wherever you want. Like we've seen so many instances over the past several years where like people have been censored for subjective reasons. Like, and I don't think that's good. Even like people who may have done wrong, I don't know if I believe in like censoring people just based on like your interpretation of what's right and what's wrong. And so I do think having a truly decentralized global financial network where I can send you money, you can send me money, and it's cheap, instant, reliable, safe, all these qualities, that's the base case. And so like when I think about what the NASDAQ is, what all of these different settlement layers today are, or like payment processors, whatever, like it would be optimal to have them decentralized and not prone to like all these different censorship risks and whatnot. And so that's like the basic thing I think I believe that crypto can be best suited for.
So someone is asking, why have you shut down most of your validators in the Cosmos ecosystem?
So I can definitely say that's not me. So like definitely a distinction I want to make is like Figment Capital is not a part of Figment. It's like we're a separate entity. We have our own separate investors. So I don't have any say over what they do. I will say just like they've also shut down some validators and chains that we're invested in. So like that can tell you like there's a they run their business the way that they need to optimize for themselves. We run our own business separately. So yeah, I can't speak for that unfortunately, but yeah, that's all I'll say.
So you mentioned Celestia, and you are was it led by you or not?
Not led by us, no, but we're early investors in Celestia.
Yeah. Did you invest in the last round, or did you invest in the earlier round they had?
We have done multiple investments, so like pretty much all of the rounds.
Oh, okay. That's because the last one was quite expensive. I think the Celestia chain was valued at $1 billion, and
Correct.
they raised 50 million in the last round, which and you were investor, so you have to have really high conviction what's that high conviction about Celestia? I still have problem about like understanding really Celestia, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, because maybe I can learn it doesn't mean to serve as the layer one where it meant to be more like a security hub, right? Like
in a way, yeah. So it's a data availability layer, which basically means like the on-chain data that like results from like block creation is stored there and like easily accessible, and it kind of makes it like it can also be used as a settlement layer, which is like ultimately where the security comes from in like a blockchain. So like yeah, security hub is like, it might be oversimplified, but it's a good mental model to think about it through. Basically, what Celestia enables and like the whole modular thesis is like you can give a layer one blockchain, which includes like settlement, consensus, data availability, and execution. And basically, you can decouple all of these layers to make optimizations to the specific things. So you can like have a hyper optimized execution layer and then have a different settlement layer, different data availability layer, and then ideally you can optimize each separately so that you can have altogether the most functional, scalable, whatever you want to accomplish blockchain or rollup possible. And like my bet on Celestia is like, the app chain thesis and Cosmos. Like obviously that's what brought me to Cosmos a long time ago. It's what's made the ecosystem unique. We're seeing right now examples where like validators are not making money because it's hard to support 100 different blockchains with not a lot of activity, and you're being compensated in the token for that chain, and if the token's going down, it's hard to support them. And so that brings into the equation like, okay, like if I still believe app chains are the future, but if the app chain model is like not economically viable, then like what's the alternative? Well, it's app specific rollups, because rollups don't need a validator set. Like Celestia can be the validator set. You just need one chain, and then you have different execution layers where these different applications can be built on top of. And so like imagine Celestia where it doesn't have a validator set, or not Osmosis, where it doesn't have a validator set, but it's just an execution layer, and it's just the Osmosis application, and there's no validators. I'm not saying it's a right and wrong thing. I think Osmosis should remain an app chain, but you can accomplish a lot more and not have to worry about the economics, and you don't even need a token necessarily to do a roll up. So I think it unlocks different use cases that we're seeing be kind of problematic right now in this like bear market. I think we'll still see app chains get a Cosmos sense, but I think to have the optionality to do a roll up and not have to do like the L1 model makes a lot of sense. And so that's kind of like the Celestia thesis in a nutshell.
And obviously, then they don't really even need the token, right? The chains.
Like Celestia needs a token. Celestia needs a token because it's like the same thing. It's kind of like a layer in a way, but yeah, the rollups which are built on top of it don't need a token.
Yeah, so those rollups could use even they could use Celestia token, right? Similar like Arbitrum or whatever use Ethereum, right? So that would work exactly the same.
Exactly.
The same way. So for Celestia, in order to succeed, we can assume. By the way, do you have to go at hour, or you're not?
I have like 15 more minutes if that works for you.
Yeah.
Perfect.
So it's fair to assume that for Celestia to succeed, they have to have rollups, right? So they have to have innovative chains. And by that, let's say the example could be Neutron, the smart contracts launch on Celestia. And by the way, the smart contracts, I'm learning now, they can have they can be like Cosmos, EVM, whatever, or it's
Yep, anyone.
Any. So Cosmos also could be, okay.
Because, so it could be Cosmosm, it could be EVM, it could be SVM, that's Solana's VM, Move VM, you name it.
And
it could be anything.
Regarding L2s on ETH, all of them have to be EVM, right? That they cannot.
No, they can be anything as well. We've just seen EVM become the dominant trend because like the goal is for these applications on layer 1 Ethereum to migrate to layer 2s and to make that as easy as possible. So that's why we've seen EVM become the norm. But you could actually have any type of VM on a layer 2 on Ethereum.
Okay, perfect. So we need a lot of rollups on Celestia in order to make Celestia successful.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of rollups coming? Because I didn't hear of any. So I want to know if there is like some rollups being built.
Oh yeah.
you know.
Yeah, there's a good amount. I mean, so like there's a whole category of like I'll call them products today called rollups as a service, where it's basically like these different rollup providers help like applications essentially deploy rollups, whether it's like with no code or there's like it's a consulting business almost. And so there's a few instances of that in Celestia. There's Eclipse, which is using like SVM and EVM rollups. And then there's Astria as well, and they're also doing a shared sequencer layer. There's Sovereign Labs. There's also the OP Stack. Some OP Stack rollups will be integrating with Celestia. Like Caldera recently announced that like they're working with Celestia, and they have some form of partnership. And so it could be also Ethereum rollups using Celestia. It doesn't have to be like rollups built on top of Celestia. But then there's also different sovereign rollups, which are like rollups that settle on Celestia. And examples of that are like, I know Shogun's one. I'm not sure if they're fully public, so I hope I didn't just expose. But yeah, there's a number of others. I'm not going to name the list, but like, yeah, there's pretty good traction actually going on right now
Right.
on Celestia.
Would it make sense for the app from Ethereum to become Celestia rollup?
Yeah, because like you can
Have you heard
actually.
of some from Ethereum trying to actually move to Celestia?
So not yet. I think when Celestia is live, it'll be more likely to happen. But like, it's hard to be like to say that before an actual blockchain's live yet. But I think it does make a lot of sense because like you can still settle onto Ethereum, but use Celestia for data availability. And the reason why you do that is because Celestia is much cheaper to use for data availability versus like layer one Ethereum. So in terms of like transaction fees, you can actually achieve a pretty significant cost reduction. And so for like applications that require high volume transactions, like a game, for example, is a perfect example. By integrating with Celestia, you can save your users a lot of money, and you can implement some form of like gasless transactions and have some like basically SaaS model where like users are paying like X amount a month, and you can just operate as you would in Web 2. We don't have to worry about like constant gas payments.
And also the nodes for Celestia for validators, they are very cost efficient, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or they are. So I want to. So would you bet that it's Celestia that will be actual most value occurring hub in comparison to Cosmos Hub, for example?
I would. So the difference is like yes, because the Cosmos Hub now has some form of like value accrual versus like via ICS, but like the thing about Celestia, it's kind of similar to Ethereum, where it's like, you know, rollups like L2s ultimately have to pay Ethereum to settle their transactions. Celestia has a very similar model where like anything leveraging Celestia for settlement or data availability ultimately has to pay Celestia on a per block basis to like either settle its transactions or store its data. And so it has similar qualities. It's still TBD in terms of like how valuable this is actually going to be. Like Ethereum right now, the token is still driven by layer one Ethereum adoption. It's unclear like if L2 future is actually better for ETH or worse. Like you'll need a lot more volume to justify it. But yeah, I mean like ICS I think is too nascent to really judge the effect it's going to have on Atom. But I do think like Celestia, it's a more clear path as to like why it would accrue significant value.
Yeah, and I don't mind ICS, but it's quite expensive when you think of that. It's like for example, I voted yes for the Stride, but I'm not sure if it's the right choice of. Not sure if you have you invested in Stride or not.
We haven't, but I know the team. I'm very
Yeah.
familiar with the project.
So like I try to avoid the shitting projects that you're not invested. You might not be happy. So.
No, we can talk about anything. It's totally like I love those guys. They're in New York as well, so I see them quite often.
Because I'm trying to think, hey, like Stride could outgrow the Cosmos Hub because so I don't know. There is Celestia, right? Celestia will be proof of stake chain, probably having additional token issuance to the validators.
Yeah.
And they will like a lot of those tokens could be liquid staked as well, right? Maybe Celestia will have their own liquid staking protocol.
Yeah.
I see Stride being very aggressive. I never seen such aggressive team in deploying, and they would go to Luna and they would win, right? Like so, they are very impressive guys. I love to see that because they're like 10 years younger than me, and I look at them and I see the Wall Street. I see the American dream. You know what I mean? Like, and I love that.
Yeah.
So I was
thinking,
they're
super hungry. They're amazing on the BD side. Like I have a lot of respect for those guys and what they've accomplished.
Yeah, so I was thinking, what if Celestia, say Not sure if you involve in any of these other large chains that will be proof of stake chains, and if the liquid staking will be popular for those chains, Stride, as long as they don't have competition, maybe there will be a lot of competition, but it's like a lot, like being first really matters a lot here.
Yeah.
And they could get a lot of value for if they can get big market share. So that's why I was thinking like, hey, Cosmos Hub for now makes sense, but I'm not sure for the future. And
Good question. I
yeah.
mean, I think Stride should definitely try to go after Celestia and conquer that market as well. And if Osmosis does become the liquidity hub for Celestia, then that bodes really well for Stride because I know like they
Yeah.
have a close relationship. So yeah,
So do you
it'll
think
be.
Celestia will try to make their own liquidity hub, like DEX, launch a DEX?
I mean, I think they will, but like, I go back and forth on like whether or not just gonna be Osmosis because I do think the majority of Celestia rollups will be IBC enabled.
Mhm.
And so if that's the case, like, and Celestia already has like very deep liquidity for a number of assets, like, why wouldn't you just go to Osmosis? You know, so
Yeah.
I don't know. I do think there are absolutely going to be applications that try to like compete with Osmosis, but it's going to be hard.
Mhm.
And I don't know if I was a betting man, I'd probably think Osmosis is best position to do it, but hard to say. Like there could be some amazing decks that comes about and does really well. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Still, no one really. There was some attempt on Evmos doing the DEX that only use liquid stake assets as the
Yeah.
pair. Essentially, liquid stake assets are much better for the pair
Yep.
because, like, because they don't decline in, like, they don't dilute. So they,
Yeah.
they actually like they protect your other asset if you bond your coin to liquid stake assets. So maybe someone could try to. There is surely some opportunities.
Yeah, there's a team called Astrovault actually that's building on
Mhm.
Archway that has a similar model.
Right.
Obviously Archway hasn't launched yet, but I know that team, and I'm very curious to see how that goes because I do think liquid stake assets as like the base pairs make a lot of sense, but I haven't seen
Mhm.
anyone like successfully do it. So even for like lending, I feel like it makes a lot more sense because you
Mhm.
can now earn yield on your collateral and use that to pay off your debt. So like the model itself just makes so much sense. I don't know why it hasn't really taken off yet.
Yeah. Like I even think Umi, you invested in Umi. They should be more aggressive with that. They have still limits on the values, and it's
Yeah.
um well, there's a lot of, now you have to repay a lot because it become popular on the Atom, but you can still squeeze additional like 7% on that. And even with Bitcoin, right? So you can use the, well, that's danger of liquidation, but if you loan like atoms against Bitcoin, those move together, you switch it to liquid stake. So of
Exactly.
course that's more like risky game, but for those seeking the yield, you can always get few percent on Bitcoin. On Atom, like, and liquid stake Atom, you can get like additional yield on the, am I
Yeah.
correct? Yeah, like you do liquid stake, you loan against it. I wonder with the, if the high repayment ratio you can outdo just liquid staking, but like now
Oh,
because
yeah,
the,
I don't know all those details. That depends on like different
yeah,
factors. But yeah, the idea, the basic premise is like you can use the yield to like pay off your debt. So
yeah,
like
yeah,
your
yeah.
borrowing
But,
can decrease over time, assuming that the yield is lower than the interest rate that you're paying.
yeah.
So that's the big question with that.
But Umi is amazing. I think not your best investment because like, but they have a lot of money to deliver now. Something.
Yeah,
They are
yeah,
very well funded.
they are
Total.
definitely what.
Yeah, like we were talking, like ICS is not even as money efficient, and people try to build mesh security. I feel it's waste of time. Is it waste of time, or I'm not seeing something?
I don't think it's a waste of time, to be honest. I think there's a lot of potential. I think like what Sunny believes could be very interesting with mesh security, and I agree, is like if you do bring Eigenlayer into this mix, or you somehow find a way to bring Bitcoin into it, and now
Mhm.
you have like Bitcoin and Ethereum securing Cosmos chains, like that becomes very compelling. But like naturally, there are weaknesses as well, where it's like you have these different Cosmos chains. The aggregate economic security is honestly not a lot, and then there's also like I don't know. There's definitely things that need to be figured out, but I do think the basic premise of like potentially orienting Cosmos around like Ethereum and Bitcoin makes it very interesting and can achieve
Mhm.
much higher degrees of security than otherwise. And so I support that vision. But how we get there is definitely unclear. So I do support the pursuit of it. I think shared security is a super important thing for Cosmos to pursue, because if you have an ecosystem with like thousands of blockchains, you need to be able to ensure a certain degree of security. And so like mesh security is a way to accomplish that. I think ICS is really great, but for a small number of chains, I don't think it scales well beyond like 5 or 6 consumer chains. And so if you want to have, a lot more blockchains in this space, then you do need some form of like mesh security or something like that, where these different ICS hubs can connect and support each other. And so I do think that's like the end model, the end state, but I know they're innovating ICS too. So we'll see. I mean, they don't need to compete necessarily either.
Yeah. With the recent regulations and the essentially a lot of proof of stake chains, and I think more to come will be considered securities. Does it change the position of Figment Capital and brings any issues for you, or you like so you were prepared for that?
Yeah, I mean, like so far, no issues. It's definitely like just not great to like be in the US where these regulations are being discussed and potentially initiated. I think like where it becomes an issue is like if founders now have to move out of the country to like start their companies because for whatever reason they're not able to incorporate in the United States. That's like not a direct issue for us, but like we do like to be able to like the reason why a lot of us are in New York is because like there's a lot of builders in New York, there's a lot of people we can actually like face to face work with. And so like if we lose that, it does like make it like, okay, like do we have to leave the country? So in terms of like doing our business, like no, there's not really a direct impact or direct issue. If there is legislation introduced around like holding tokens, then definitely that becomes a problem. But I haven't seen anything like that yet. So yeah, it's just like it's not fun. Like I don't love seeing the country that I live in like actively try to go against the industry I work in. Like that sucks. But so far there's no like actual like doomsday awaiting or anything.
Yeah, it's surprising because New York like is not really well, it's a great city. I love New York. I mean, it doesn't seem to support crypto a lot, but it kind of become crypto hub. That's what
Yeah,
I feel, which is
I can't explain it, but it has become that. Like there's the concentration of people in crypto here is extremely high.
yeah.
There's so many people I can see at any given day, any given time. It's what makes being here really great. But I don't really know how/why they came about. It just seemed to happen.
Yeah, I think something great like people always wish the collapse of certain city, but it's like I think people like if you read newspapers, it's been I wasn't around, but for past 50 years, people preach the fall of the New York, right?
Yeah, I mean during the pandemic, everyone thought the city was
Yeah.
done.
You originally from New York or somewhere else?
No, I'm from New Hampshire.
Right.
So very rural state. I still spend a lot of my time in New Hampshire actually, but I just like go back and forth between both places. Because I am not a city boy. Like I love being in the mountains, being in rural areas. So I'm usually here for a couple of weeks, go home for a couple of weeks, and yeah,
Yeah.
get the fix of
Dougie,
both.
I know you have to run, but
Oh yeah.
if you can give me 5 worst chains in Cosmos, or
Oh my
3.
god.
Okay, no, let's say 3 worst chains in Cosmos. 5 is too much. 3 the worst one and 3 the best ones.
Oh my god.
Let's start with the worst. Absolutely, the shame of Cosmos, the wall of shame. Like three chains that embarrassed Cosmos.
I mean, okay. First one that comes to mind, although they've made some improvements and some interesting things have been happening there, is Kava, because of the UST hard code incident. Like that was just ridiculous when they hard coded UST to $1. So it definitely earns a place in the shit tier list as a result of that. Other ones that I don't think are good. There's a lot that's
You probably think of something, but don't necessarily want to offend people, is it?
well, there's definitely a degree of that. I'm trying to go to the ecosystem list in Cosmos because like there's a lot of chains I think I've forgotten about. I don't know why I can't pull this up. Here we go. All right. Sorry, give me a second.
It's
Let
all
me
right.
scroll.
It's like it's fine.
Okay.
I'm also thinking what would I say, but
It's a hard. I was actually not expecting this. I don't know if you ask this question frequently,
not
but
like depends. Like the problem is I don't really write down what I want to talk about. So then at the end of conversation,
oh,
I
you
know
don't?
no,
Wow,
so
that's impressive.
sometimes I miss on a lot of stuff that I want to ask, just
Totally.
like talking to people and like want to also like know what the interest is, right? And
Yeah. Um, I would say Terra 2, like the revival of Terra is
Mhm.
definitely on the list. Like I think like there's just been a lot
Something
of
it should
problems.
happen. It should be
Yeah,
like
I just don't think it's like compelling. I do think like there were aspects of like Do Kwon's Renew Vision that were interesting, but like at the end of the day, like Terra was built around UST in a lot of ways, and like when the demise of that was the demise of Terra in my mind, and so I don't think like the effort of Terra 2 is like interesting, to be honest. So I put that on the list as well. Um, and then the last one, number 3, can I say Thorchain? Because it's built on the Cosmos SDK.
yeah, I tell you, I did not expected these answers, and they're so good. Yeah.
Yeah, I was a big time Thorchain supporter actually for a while, but they just like have really underdelivered, and I think like they had a very interesting premise and thing to work towards, and between the exploits, between
Mhm.
like I think the BD issues they've had, a number of things like they've they're on this list not because like they're not as bad as the 2 other chains I mentioned in my opinion, but like for me I had really high hopes and they just underdelivered, and so I'm gonna put them on the list because like I think they could have been huge, but instead they're kind of like not really that relevant
Mhm.
because they failed to execute in a lot of ways. So a different reason to be on the shit list, but I would put them there as
No,
well.
it's good because many people would just point some like rags or chains that degrade at 99%, but you actually brought the chains that had big promise and big hopes, right? Like
Yeah,
the which is actually great. Um,
that's my
and
goal.
if you would have to place the victors, the Cosmos victors.
Yeah, Osmosis is on that list for sure
Mhm.
because of the reasons I explained earlier. Stargaze, I'm gonna put as well. It's the
You
NFT
didn't
hub.
have to do it. You really don't have
No,
to.
no, no. Seriously, I'm a huge. Even if I wasn't investor like in
Mhm.
Stargaze, I'd be a supporter. I was an investor, a personal investor in Stargaze before I even like started at Figment. So I'm a big time believer, and I think like being the NFT hub has a lot of potential and
Mhm.
promise for Stargaze. And the third one, can I say a network that hasn't launched yet?
Yeah, sure. Go
Or
on.
I have to. My third one's gonna be Anoma. Uh, Anoma, if you haven't looked into it, highly recommend it. It's gonna be a lot of reading. It's super complex, but like the work they're doing on the privacy side, the work they're doing on the intent side, like there's a lot of really interesting protocol
Mhm.
innovations that they're building, and I just think it's gonna be huge for Cosmos and the space as a whole when Anoma launches. So yeah, that's like my most anticipated chain launch and what I'm very excited for. And like for reference, like the Anoma team basically built IBC back years back. Like they are exceptional. And so that's my top 3.
I think over a year ago I might have made video where I would mention like 5 chains that I'm waiting, and there would be a Noma. But like a lot of these videos, of obviously it's silly because like the same way a lot of those videos don't age very well. It
Yeah,
happens. But yeah,
it happens.
I'm going to look more into Anoma. Uh, Good answer. Like for Stargaze, I'm like thinking it needs really huge collection that will drive the hype. That's how it's very basic thinking, but I'd love to see it one day. We have like so many collections now and so much activity, but with like also tokenomics is not ideal. Also change is coming, right? So
Yeah, exactly. I
but,
mean,
but
I think if you look at adoption, like Stargaze is number 2 on the list. Like it's Osmosis and
yeah,
Stargaze that see the most traction today. So
yeah,
there's a
Shane
lot to
will
be
be
excited.
happy. Shane will be very happy.
I
Seriously.
actually almost wore my Stargaze shirt on this, but I
Oh
was
wow.
like, I don't want to be like that biased. I want to be somewhat neutral. But yeah, I mean, Shane actually lives like, I don't know, 6 blocks from me.
Yeah.
So I run into him all the time.
Last question from like,
Consider
do you
Adam a meme.
consider
Kind of, to be honest. Like, for a while, it actually was purely a meme coin, pretty much. Like, I mean, it did secure the Cosmos hub, but it was purely speculative value that drove its adoption. Like, people just associated it with Cosmos, and so they bought Atom because they thought it was exposure to Cosmos. Now it's less so. I mean, ICS is a way for it to actually accrue value, but it's still like TBD how much value is going to accrue from ICS. I'm going to end this off with a hot take. I do got to run in a sec, but I've always been a supporter of smart contracts in the hub. So that's, I would love to see that. Unfortunately, it got shot down. I don't know if it's ever going to happen, but I do think that's the way for the Cosmos hub and Atom to truly escape the meme coin identity.
Yeah, yeah. So was it Prop 69, something like this?
69. Yeah, yep, about, I don't know, year or so ago.
Yeah. Yeah, I will not hold you for more. Maybe you come again in the future. There is that question. I know you have to run. So great pleasure, Dougie. It was great meeting you. So enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope your investments turn great. Thank you. Thank you. Your time.
Likewise. Yeah. Let's do this again at some point. Really had a great time. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Take care.
Awesome.
Bye-bye.
See you soon.